In the chaos of war, heroes aren't born from grand speeches or movie-perfect moments. They emerge in split seconds when everything falls apart, when the impossible becomes the only option, and when a single decision can mean the difference between life and death for everyone around you. This is the story of Staff Sergeant Maria Santos, a communications specialist who never imagined she would find herself leading a rescue mission behind enemy lines. It's about the moment when training meets terror, when a woman who spent her days managing radio frequencies suddenly had to manage the survival of 12 soldiers trapped in hostile territory. Some stories are about people who were born to lead. This one is about someone who had leadership thrust upon her when the world exploded around them, and how she discovered that sometimes the greatest strength comes not from what you've prepared for, but from what you never saw coming. The morning sun cast long shadows across Forward Operating Base Phoenix as Staff Sergeant Maria Santos adjusted her headset for what she thought would be another routine day in the communications bunker. At 28, Maria had spent 6 years perfecting the art of keeping soldiers connected across the dangerous landscapes of Afghanistan. Her small frame belied the strength that came from managing life-or-death communications under pressure, and her calm voice had become a lifeline for countless patrols operating in hostile territory. The communications center buzzed with the familiar sounds of radio chatter, computer keyboards clicking, and the low hum of electronic equipment. Maria's station was positioned at the heart of it all, surrounded by multiple monitors displaying real-time positions of friendly forces, weather patterns, and intelligence updates. She had arrived early that morning, as she always did, to review overnight reports and prepare for the day's operations. Phoenix Base, this is Hawk 6, requesting permission to begin morning patrol, crackled through her headset. Maria recognized the voice immediately as Lieutenant Colonel James Morrison, a veteran officer who had been leading patrols in this region for 8 months. His team was scheduled for a routine reconnaissance mission to check on a village that had reported suspicious activity near the Pakistani border. Hawk 6, Phoenix Base copies. You are cleared for departure. Weather conditions are favorable, no significant threats reported in your area of operations, Maria responded, her fingers dancing across the keyboard as she logged the patrol's departure time and route. She had coordinated hundreds of these missions, each one requiring precise attention to detail and constant vigilance. As the morning progressed, Maria juggled multiple conversations with various units scattered across the province. There was Alpha Company conducting a supply run to an outpost 30 kilometers north, Bravo Company providing security for a medical convoy, and Charlie Company running training exercises with Afghan National Army units near the base. Each unit required different levels of support, from simple check-ins to complex coordination of air support and logistics. Around noon, Maria received what initially seemed like a routine request. Phoenix Base, this is Hawk 6. We've reached the village and are conducting interviews with local elders. Everything appears normal, but we're going to extend our patrol to check on reports of unusual activity in the valley to our east. Estimate we'll be in the field for an additional 3 hours. Maria made the appropriate notations in her log and updated the operational display. Lieutenant Colonel Morrison was known for his thoroughness, and extending patrols based on intelligence was standard procedure. She confirmed his new timeline and reminded him to maintain regular communication intervals. What Maria didn't know was that Morrison's team had walked into a carefully planned ambush. The reports of suspicious activity had been deliberately leaked to draw American forces into a valley where insurgents had spent weeks preparing defensive positions. The enemy had learned to exploit American tactics of investigating potential threats, using the military's own diligence against them. The first sign of trouble came at 1,347 hours when Morrison's regular check-in was 15 minutes overdue. Maria tried raising them on the primary frequency, then switched to backup channels. Military protocol allowed for some flexibility in communication schedules, as patrols often became engaged in activities that prevented immediate radio contact. However, Maria's instincts, honed by years of experience, told her something was wrong. Hawk 6, this is Phoenix Base, please respond, she transmitted, adjusting her headset and increasing the volume. Static filled her ears, interrupted occasionally by fragmentary signals that could have been atmospheric interference or damaged equipment. She tried again, this time using emergency frequencies that would override other communications. 20 minutes past the scheduled check-in, Maria made the decision to alert her supervisor. Captain Rodriguez, the communications officer on duty, had been reviewing intelligence reports at his desk when Maria approached with her concerns. Rodriguez was a seasoned officer who trusted Maria's judgment implicitly. Her track record of maintaining contact with units in difficult conditions was exemplary, and she had never raised false alarms. "How long since their last transmission?" Rodriguez asked, already moving toward Maria's station to review the communication logs himself. 43 minutes, sir. I've tried all primary and backup frequencies, adjusted for atmospheric conditions, and attempted to reach them through relay stations. No response on any channel, Maria reported, her voice steady despite the growing anxiety she felt. Rodriguez studied the displays showing Morrison's last known position and the planned route of their extended patrol. The valley they were investigating was known to be treacherous terrain with limited visibility and natural obstacles that could interfere with radio communications. However, Morrison was carrying satellite communication equipment that should have functioned regardless of terrain challenges. Continue attempting contact every 10 minutes. I'm going to alert the base commander and prepare a search and rescue operation, Rodriguez instructed. If they're in trouble, time is critical. As Rodriguez left to coordinate with command staff, Maria intensified her efforts to reach Morrison's team. She expanded her search to include monitoring frequencies used by other coalition forces, checked with air traffic controllers who might have visual contact with the area, and even attempted to reach Morrison through personal communication devices that some soldiers carried for emergency situations. The base's emergency response protocols activated swiftly. Within 30 minutes, a quick reaction force was being assembled, helicopter pilots were conducting pre-flight checks, and intelligence analysts were reviewing satellite imagery of the area where Morrison's team had last been seen. Maria found herself at the center of these preparations, as her communications station became the coordination hub for the developing rescue mission. Major Sarah Chen, the base's operations officer, arrived at Maria's station carrying maps and intelligence briefings. Chen was known for her analytical approach to crisis situations and her ability to remain calm under extreme pressure. She had commanded rescue operations before and understood the critical importance of accurate communication and coordination. "Sergeant Santos, I need you to walk me through everything you know about Hawk 6's mission and their last communications," Chen requested, spreading the maps across Maria's desk. Maria appreciated Chen's direct approach and her recognition that the communications specialist possessed vital information for the rescue effort. Maria provided a detailed briefing on Morrison's planned route, the reasons for extending their patrol, weather conditions that might affect communications, and her assessment of the communication failures they were experiencing. She had prepared a comprehensive timeline of events and had theories about what might have caused the communication breakdown. As they discussed the situation, Maria's headset crackled with an incoming transmission. The signal was weak and distorted, but she immediately recognized Morrison's voice through the static. "Phoenix Base. Hawk 6, under heavy fire, casualties, need immediate." The transmission cut off abruptly, leaving Maria staring at her equipment in frustration. She had heard enough to confirm that Morrison's team was in serious trouble, but not enough to determine their exact location or the nature of their situation. The partial transmission provided proof of life but also indicated that their situation was deteriorating rapidly. "Did you get a location fix on that transmission?" Chen asked urgently. Maria's fingers flew across her keyboard as she analyzed the signal data, attempting to triangulate the source of Morrison's transmission using multiple receiving stations across the region. The signal came from approximately grid reference 342 to 567, which puts them in the eastern section of the valley, about 2 kilometers from their last reported position, Maria reported. The signal strength suggests they're in a depression or valley floor, which would explain the communication difficulties. Chen immediately began coordinating the rescue mission based on this new information. The quick reaction force would need to approach carefully, as the terrain that was interfering with communications would also provide advantages to enemy forces. Air support would be limited by the same geographical features that were hampering radio contact. As rescue preparations intensified, Maria continued monitoring all frequencies, hoping to receive additional transmissions from Morrison's team. She also began coordinating with aircraft that would be involved in the rescue, establishing communication protocols and backup plans in case primary systems failed during the operation. The weight of responsibility settled heavily on Maria's shoulders. 12 soldiers were in danger, possibly wounded or worse, and her ability to maintain communication with both the trapped patrol and the rescue forces could determine whether they all came home safely. This was no longer a routine day of managing radio traffic. It had become a life-or-death situation where every decision mattered and every minute counted. As the afternoon progressed and rescue preparations neared completion, Maria realized that her role was about to expand far beyond anything she had ever experienced. The rescue mission would require unprecedented coordination between ground forces, air support, and base operations. She would be the critical link connecting all these elements, responsible for ensuring that information flowed accurately and quickly between commanders who would be making split-second decisions in a hostile environment. Standing in the communications center, surrounded by the increasing activity of a major rescue operation, Maria Santos had no way of knowing that within hours she would be making decisions that would fundamentally change not only her own life, but the lives of everyone involved in what was about to become one of the most challenging rescue missions in the base's history. The routine communications specialist was about to discover capabilities she never knew she possessed. The rescue helicopter lifted off from forward operating Base Phoenix at 1,630 hours with Maria Santos aboard, a development that surprised everyone including herself. What had begun as a communication support mission had evolved into something far more complex when Major Chen made an unprecedented decision just minutes before departure. "Sergeant Santos, I need you on that helicopter," Chen had announced, appearing at Maria's station with full combat gear. The terrain where Morrison's team is trapped creates a communication dead zone. Standard radio relay isn't working, and we need someone who understands their communication protocols and can establish contact from multiple positions. Maria had never been assigned to a combat rescue mission. Her role had always been safely within the base perimeter, coordinating from her protected position in the communications bunker. The idea of flying into hostile territory, where Morrison's team was pinned down by enemy fire, represented a dramatic departure from everything she had trained for. However, Chen's reasoning was sound. Without reliable communication, the rescue mission could easily become a disaster that would cost even more lives. "Ma'am, I've never been assigned to field operations," Maria had protested, even as she began gathering the portable communication equipment she would need. Her heart was racing, but her hands remained steady as she collected backup radios, satellite communication devices, and emergency beacons. "Neither have most of us been assigned to rescue 12 soldiers from a well-fortified enemy position," Chen replied. "This situation requires us to adapt. Your communication expertise could be the difference between success and failure. We need you out there." The flight to Morrison's location took 23 minutes, during which Maria tested and retested her communication equipment while trying to manage her anxiety about entering combat for the first time. The helicopter crew consisted of experienced veterans who had conducted countless rescue missions, but even they acknowledged that this operation presented unusual challenges. As they approached the valley where Morrison's team was trapped, Maria could see the terrain that had been causing their communication problems. Steep rocky walls rose on three sides, creating a natural amphitheater that would block radio signals and provide excellent defensive positions for enemy forces. Smoke from explosions marked several locations where fighting had obviously occurred, and the helicopter pilot pointed out burned vehicles that had belonged to Morrison's patrol. "Phoenix Base, this is Rescue 1 approaching target area," Maria transmitted, establishing communication with the base operations center. "We have visual contact with the valley. Multiple signs of combat. Attempting to establish contact with Hawk 6. The helicopter circled the area while Maria attempted to raise Morrison on multiple frequencies. The elevation provided better line-of-sight communication, and, after several attempts, she received a response that chilled her to the bone. "Rescue 1, this is Hawk 6 Alpha. Lieutenant Colonel Morrison is down. Repeat, Morrison is down. We have 4 Kia, 3 seriously wounded, and are running low on ammunition. Enemy has us pinned in a cave system on the north wall of the valley." The voice belonged to Sergeant First Class Robert Torres, Morrison's senior enlisted soldier. Torres was a combat veteran with 15 years of experience, but Maria could hear the strain in his voice. The situation on the ground was worse than anyone had anticipated. Hawk 6 Alpha, this is Rescue 1. Medical evacuation is en route. Can you provide exact coordinates of your position? Maria responded, while simultaneously relaying the information to the rescue team commander and base operations. Torres provided coordinates that placed the survivors in a cave system approximately 300 meters up the valley's north wall. The enemy forces were positioned between the cave and potential landing zones for rescue helicopters, making a direct extraction impossible. The rescue would require ground forces to fight their way to the cave system while maintaining communication with air support and base operations. Major Chen, who was commanding the rescue mission from the helicopter, made a decision that would test everyone's abilities. We're going to establish a forward communication post on the ridgeline. Sergeant Santos, I need you to maintain contact with both the trapped patrol and our ground forces while coordinating air support. The helicopter landed on a rocky outcropping that provided excellent visibility of the entire valley but also exposed them to potential enemy fire. Maria quickly established her communication station using portable equipment while the rescue team began their descent toward Morrison's position. She found herself in the unprecedented situation of coordinating multiple combat units while under the constant threat of enemy attack. From her position on the ridge, Maria could see the tactical situation clearly. The enemy had positioned themselves in caves and rock formations that provided excellent cover while allowing them to control access to Morrison's location. The rescue team would need to advance across open ground while Maria coordinated airstrikes to suppress enemy positions. Viper 2-1, this is Phoenix forward. I have targets for immediate engagement, Maria transmitted to the attack helicopter that had just arrived on station. She had never directed airstrikes before, but her training in communication protocols had included procedures for coordinating with aircraft. The situation demanded that she expand her role beyond anything she had ever imagined. Using binoculars and GPS coordinates, Maria identified enemy positions and guided the attack helicopter's strikes with precision that surprised even herself. Her calm voice and accurate target descriptions enabled the pilot to neutralize several enemy positions that had been preventing the rescue team from advancing. Phoenix forward, Viper 2-1. Outstanding target designation. We're seeing enemy forces withdrawing from positions along the valley floor. Your ground team should have a clearer path to the objective. As the rescue team advanced, Maria maintained constant communication with both the ground forces and the trapped patrol. She provided updates on enemy movements, coordinated requests for additional air support, and managed the complex logistics of evacuating wounded soldiers from a hostile environment. The most challenging moment came when the rescue team reached Morrison's position and discovered that moving the wounded would be more difficult than anticipated. Two of the surviving soldiers had injuries that made it dangerous to transport them without proper medical equipment, and the narrow cave system made it difficult to bring in stretchers. Phoenix forward, this is Rescue Alpha. We need a medical evacuation helicopter to get closer to our position. The wounded can't be moved over this terrain without proper support, reported Captain Lisa Walker, who was leading the ground rescue team. Maria found herself making critical decisions about helicopter flight paths and landing zones while coordinating with multiple aircraft and ground units. She had to balance the urgent need to evacuate wounded soldiers against the safety of the helicopter crews who would be flying into dangerous terrain under potential enemy fire. Medevac 7, this is Phoenix forward. I'm going to guide you to a landing zone approximately 200 meters southeast of the cave position. Be advised, terrain is rocky and there may be enemy forces in the area, Maria transmitted, having identified the only viable helicopter landing site through careful observation of the terrain. The medical evacuation proceeded with Maria providing continuous updates on enemy activity and weather conditions that could affect the helicopter's approach. Her ability to maintain situational awareness while managing multiple communication channels proved crucial to the success of the operation. As wounded soldiers were loaded onto the medical helicopter, Maria coordinated the extraction of the rescue team and the remaining survivors from Morrison's patrol. The operation required precise timing and coordination between ground forces, aircraft, and base operations. Every element had to work together perfectly to ensure that no one was left behind in the hostile territory. The complexity of managing simultaneous communications with 7 different units while under combat conditions tested every aspect of Maria's training and capabilities. She discovered that her years of experience in routine communication operations had prepared her for this challenge in ways she had never realized. Her understanding of radio protocols, her ability to remain calm under pressure, and her attention to detail became critical skills in a life-or-death situation. During the final phase of the extraction, enemy forces launched a counterattack intended to prevent the rescue from succeeding. Maria found herself coordinating defensive measures while ensuring that the evacuation continued. She directed airstrikes against enemy positions while managing the departure sequence for aircraft carrying wounded soldiers and survivors. All stations, this is Phoenix forward. Enemy forces are moving to engage from the west. Viper 2-1, I need immediate suppression of targets at grid 345 to 571. Medevac 7, expedite your departure. Rescue Alpha, prepare for possible contact during extraction. The counterattack was repelled, and the extraction succeeded, but Maria realized that her role had fundamentally changed during the course of the mission. She had evolved from a communications specialist supporting the operation to a forward controller making tactical decisions that affected the safety of multiple units. Her calm voice and accurate situational reports had become the foundation upon which the entire rescue operation was built. As the helicopters departed the valley with all survivors and the rescue team safely aboard, Maria reflected on the events of the afternoon. What had begun as a routine day managing radio communications had transformed into a combat mission where her decisions directly influenced whether soldiers lived or died. She had discovered capabilities she never knew she possessed and had proven herself capable of leadership under the most challenging circumstances imaginable. The flight back to forward operating base Phoenix gave Maria time to process what had happened, but she knew that the full impact of her actions would not be understood until later. She had successfully coordinated a complex rescue mission that had saved the lives of 8 soldiers while ensuring the safety of the rescue team. Her transformation from communications specialist to combat coordinator had been complete and irreversible. The aftermath of the rescue mission revealed the true magnitude of what Maria Santos had accomplished, though she wouldn't fully understand it for several days. As the helicopters touched down at forward operating base Phoenix that evening, she was still processing the events that had transformed her from a communications specialist into a combat leader who had coordinated one of the most successful rescue operations in the base's history. Lieutenant Colonel Morrison had died from his wounds during the initial ambush, along with 3 other soldiers from his patrol. The loss weighed heavily on everyone involved, but the fact that 8 soldiers had been rescued alive was attributed directly to Maria's exceptional performance during the mission. Her ability to maintain communication between multiple units while coordinating air support and medical evacuation had prevented a complete disaster. In the days following the rescue, Maria found herself at the center of attention she had never sought. The base commander, Colonel Patricia Hayes, requested a detailed debriefing of her actions during the mission. Hayes was a career officer with extensive combat experience who understood the significance of what had occurred. Sergeant Santos, I've read the preliminary reports from Major Chen and the other officers involved in the rescue operation. Your performance was extraordinary, particularly considering this was your first combat mission, Colonel Hayes began, reviewing the documents spread across her desk. I want to understand how you made the transition from communications support to tactical coordination so effectively. Maria had been asking herself the same question since returning to base. Her actions during the rescue had felt natural at the time, driven by necessity and training she hadn't realized she possessed. Looking back, she could identify specific moments when she had made decisions that were outside her normal responsibilities, but, in the context of the emergency, they had seemed like the only logical choices. Ma'am, everything happened very quickly. When Sergeant Torres reported their situation, it became clear that standard communication protocols wouldn't be sufficient. The terrain was blocking normal radio contact, and the rescue team needed real-time intelligence about enemy positions, Maria explained. I had been monitoring their communications for hours, so I understood their tactical situation better than anyone else available. Colonel Hayes nodded, making notes as Maria continued her explanation. The colonel was particularly interested in Maria's decision-making process during the critical moments when she had directed airstrikes and coordinated helicopter movements in hostile territory. The most significant aspect of your performance was your ability to maintain situational awareness while managing multiple communication channels simultaneously. That's a skill typically associated with much more senior personnel, Hayes observed. Your actions saved lives and prevented the loss of additional soldiers. The debriefing process took several hours and involved detailed analysis of every decision Maria had made during the rescue operation. Military investigators needed to understand exactly how events had unfolded, both for the official record and to identify lessons that could be applied to future operations. Maria's performance had been so exceptional that it warranted careful study. Over the following week, Maria attempted to return to her normal duties in the communications center, but she found it difficult to settle back into routine operations. The experience of coordinating combat operations had changed her perspective on her role and capabilities. She discovered that her understanding of military operations had been transformed by the direct experience of seeing how communication, intelligence, and tactical decisions interconnected in real combat situations. The change in her status became apparent when Major Chen approached her with a proposal that would alter the trajectory of her military career. Chen had been impressed by Maria's performance during the rescue and believed that her combination of technical expertise and demonstrated leadership potential made her an ideal candidate for specialized training. Sergeant Santos, I want to discuss your future career development. Your performance during the rescue mission demonstrated capabilities that extend far beyond your current military occupational specialty, Chen began, sitting across from Maria in the communications center during a quiet period. Have you ever considered applying for officer training? The suggestion caught Maria completely off guard. She had always seen herself as a technical specialist who would advance through the enlisted ranks based on her expertise in communications systems. The idea of becoming an officer, with the leadership responsibilities that entailed, had never occurred to her. Ma'am, I appreciate the confidence you're showing in me, but I've never thought about becoming an officer. My background is technical, and I've always focused on becoming the best communications specialist possible, Maria replied, though she found herself intrigued by the possibility. Chen explained that the military was actively seeking officers with proven technical expertise who could bridge the gap between specialist knowledge and operational leadership. Maria's performance during the rescue had demonstrated exactly the kind of adaptive leadership that modern military operations required. The nature of warfare is changing, and we need leaders who understand both the technical aspects of modern communication systems and the practical requirements of combat operations. You've proven that you can perform under pressure and make critical decisions that save lives, Chen continued. The Army would benefit from having more officers with your combination of technical expertise and demonstrated leadership capability. The conversation with Major Chen initiated a period of intense reflection for Maria. She began to see her experience during the rescue mission not as an exceptional circumstance, but as a revelation of capability she had always possessed but never had the opportunity to demonstrate. The confidence she had shown while coordinating multiple units under combat conditions suggested that she might indeed be suited for greater leadership responsibilities. Several weeks after the rescue, Maria received news that would provide external validation of her actions. The Army's investigation into the rescue operation had concluded that her performance had been exemplary and merited official recognition. She was awarded the Bronze Star Medal for heroic achievement in connection with the rescue of Morrison's patrol, an honor typically reserved for much more senior personnel. The medal ceremony was attended by senior officers from throughout the region, including generals who had traveled specifically to recognize Maria's contribution to the successful rescue operation. Colonel Hayes presented the medal and delivered remarks that emphasized the significance of Maria's actions. Staff Sergeant Santos exemplifies the best qualities of the modern American soldier. When faced with an impossible situation, she adapted, led, and succeeded in saving the lives of her fellow soldiers. Her performance demonstrates that heroism comes not from rank or position, but from the courage to act when action is required, Hayes stated during the ceremony. The recognition brought Maria to the attention of senior military leaders who were always seeking talented individuals for advancement and specialized assignments. Within a month of receiving the Bronze Star, she was contacted by representatives from several elite units who were interested in recruiting her for positions that would utilize her unique combination of technical expertise and proven leadership ability. The opportunity that most appealed to Maria came from a joint special operations unit that specialized in communication and coordination for complex missions in hostile environments. The position would require additional training and would involve significantly more responsibility, but it would also allow her to continue developing the leadership skills she had discovered during the rescue operation. After extensive consideration and consultation with mentors including Major Chan and Colonel Hayes, Maria decided to accept the position with the Special Operations Unit. The role would involve coordinating communication for multinational operations, managing intelligence sharing between different military services, and training other specialists in advanced communication techniques. The transition from her role as a communications specialist at Forward Operating Base Phoenix to her new position represented a complete transformation of her military career. She had evolved from someone who supported operations to someone who planned and led them. The skills she had always possessed had been refined and expanded through the crucible of combat experience. 6 months after the rescue mission, Maria found herself training a new generation of communication specialists in the lessons she had learned about adaptability, leadership, and decision-making under pressure. Her story had become part of the curriculum for military communication schools, used to illustrate how technical expertise could be combined with leadership capability to achieve extraordinary results. The impact of her actions extended beyond her own career advancement. The rescue operation had been studied extensively by military strategists who were interested in understanding how communication specialists could be better integrated into combat operations. Maria's success had demonstrated that traditional role boundaries could be transcended when circumstances demanded adaptive leadership. Looking back on the events that had transformed her life, Maria realized that the rescue mission had revealed capabilities she had always possessed but never had the opportunity to demonstrate. Her years of experience managing complex communication systems had prepared her for the challenge of coordinating multiple units under combat conditions, even though she had never imagined that such coordination would be required. The story of Staff Sergeant Maria Santos became a testament to the potential that exists within every soldier, waiting for the right circumstances to emerge. Her transformation from communications specialist to combat leader illustrated that heroism is not determined by rank, position, or predetermined roles, but by the willingness to act when action is required and to adapt when adaptation is necessary. The soldiers she had helped rescue continued their own military careers, carrying with them the knowledge that their lives had been saved by someone who had transcended her assigned role to become the leader they needed in their darkest hour. The legacy of that rescue mission continued to influence military training and operations, ensuring that Maria's example would inspire future generations of soldiers to discover their own hidden capabilities when circumstances demanded extraordinary performance.